They were wanting to put my wife, who's never been involved in my businesses, in jail for 6, 7, 8 years, and me in jail for 32 years for running our own family businesses. We didn't take money from people. We didn't do any of that. We just tried to administrate our businesses, and not understanding accounting and having people work for us that were inept ended up bringing us under the microscope of the IRS because we were handling millions of dollars of our own money. And like I say, fortunately, Michael Minns and his excellent staff, he even brought in expert witnesses who were highly qualified to do what they do. Forensic accounting people who came in and said, this is correct, it's not illegal, this is what needs to be done. And they brought these mistakes to the light in front of the jury. Mm-hmm. And they were undisputable. There was no way that any jury in their right minds would have voted against us. Prior to coming to the Minns firm, we had been represented by several other law firms, which we subsequently fired for different reasons. One attorney, who I found out after the fact, gathers large retainers and then pressures his clients into taking plea deals. He got fired for pressuring me to take a plea deal when I knew that I was innocent. The second attorney was afraid of the government and just didn't feel that they could ever be beaten. And when a plea deal was offered to me, he said, this is the best we're going to do. He got fired for making that statement. There were attorneys who told us going into this that it was hopeless. Now, which one are you going to believe, and who's going to pick up the sword and really go to battle for you? If I'd have listened to some of those attorneys and taken their advice, I can tell you I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. We came across the Minns law firm, found them on their website under tax defense, and as we began to look into the website and their impressive string of victories against the IRS, it was more than impressive. There was not another law firm that we found in the United States that had such an impressive string of wins against the IRS. And as I've stated previously, there were some attorneys that we had representing us prior to the Minns firm that actually implied that we couldn't win. And that's a pretty serious situation to have an attorney, your own attorney, tell you that when they're facing the federal government. But the Minns firm not only would fight and against the IRS and the federal government, but the impressive wins to their credit was overwhelming. So when we came to the Minns firm, it was made very clear to me that there would be no pressure put on me either way to take a plea deal or to go to trial, because as was accurately stated to be by Mr. Minns, it is your life here that's on trial. We believed in our innocence, and so we decided to fight. And the Minns firm was 110% behind us. And that's what we did, and we won. They lived, ate, and slept my case. And I'm going to tell you what it showed when we got to the courtroom. They turned the government upside down, which they should have, because I was innocent. But unfortunately, in these United States, a lot of innocent people go to jail. And they were threatening to do that to us. Special IRS agent was testifying in my trial, and in his testimony made it abundantly clear to us and to the jury that the IRS basically does what they want to do, even including illegal things, things that are beyond the scope of their duties, beyond reasonable legality, like leaning property that you don't even own. And when he was questioned under oath, why did you lien property when it was clear that the defendant didn't own the property, nor has ever owned the property? He said, if you don't like it, sue me. Now, this is a federal agent speaking, which spoke so clearly and loudly to us and to the jury that they're basically a law unto themselves. They'll do whatever they're allowed to get away with. And thank God in our case with Michael Minns, he held their feet to the fire and we won. Michael Minns in the courtroom is like I say, in all my years of working with attorneys, I've not experienced the expertise, the professionalism, and Michael not sleeping at nights, working on my case when I was sleeping. I've never had that happen, except with the Minns firm, and it sure showed up in court. Their case was systematically dismantled against me. The corruption, and it does exist in our government, was shown to be exactly that, corruptness. And most attorneys who wouldn't find it or didn't care to pay attention to it, it's that type of oversight that causes innocent people to go away. And I'm happy to tell you that those, not a rock was unturned in my case. It was thoroughly researched, thoroughly defended, and came out in a resounding victory. This is a timeline of events in my trial that was put together by Michael Minns, Ashley Arnett of the Minns Law Firm, and was such a critical tool in the trial to prove the fallacy of the prosecution's argument. One of which was a trust being set up years before a supposed crime had taken place of my putting or taking real estate in or out of an entity, when it was in trust long before that. When a jury can see how events actually flow out like this, then the fallacies of the prosecution argument really comes to light. And this here timeline was used in many instances to do just that. One other thing that I really appreciated about this thorough timeline outlining all that I was accused of at my trial was that it gave an opportunity for me, the defendant, to actually show the jury the business that I was involved in. Michael Minns, Ashley Arnett actually inserted pictures of our real estate development project when our children were young at home. And when I was born, 6 years old in 1954, up here in the upper left-hand corner, me at one of my first businesses when I was 31 years old. And it gives warp and woof to your life rather than just a big, thick package of allegations being made against you. And it shows the jury the real fabric of your life. This wasn't a smoke and mirrors thing. It was a hard guy, me, working hard to support my family and make some money. And as was brought out by our defense, the prosecution, the government, always paints every allegation with a sinister stroke of the brush, which they did in my case. But this timeline just clearly in black and white brought out facts as they actually were, as they existed at the time. And when it was all said and done, there was no way that a jury could argue against us. And that's why the prosecution lost and we won our case. I just want to say one word about attorney fees here. One word of caution: do not hire the cheapest attorney. As I've stated earlier, when your freedom is on the line, as mine was in my trial, you cannot put a price on it. You cannot put a price on it. However, having said that, I will say something in relationship to Michael Minns and the fees that were charged by the Minns firm. We were fortunate to be taken as a client because they only take selected clients, a few at a time. And I was amazed at how reasonable they were actually in their fees. I've seen multi-million-dollar defenses put on for other clients that were not close to the defense that was put on for us. And in my estimation, they should have and could have charged an awful lot more money than what they did.